enhancing social inclusion. Financing must be inclusive. The capital we mobilize should reach the most vulnerable. And here we are talking of women, the youth, persons with disabilities, and rural communities. It must support grassroots initiatives and enable all segments of society to participate in and benefit from sustainable development. We must ensure that no one is left behind, not just as a slogan, but as a measurable outcome. And the third objective is promoting sustainable water resource management. And under this one here, you know that water is life, and it is central to the SDGs. From agriculture to health, energy to climate resilience, water connects them all. So innovative financing must also prioritize investment in water infrastructure, agriculture, governance, and ecosystem restoration. Climate financing for water must be scaled up to protect communities and economies across the continent. So in Uganda, we are integrating these priorities through our national development frameworks. And initiatives like the Gro Foundation are helping to operationalize these aspirations on the ground, connecting communities with financing opportunities in climate actions and sustainable livelihoods. As we begin today's discussions, I encourage all of us to challenge all the models, amplify inclusive voices, and create new financial instruments that speak to Africa's realities and aspirations. So on behalf of Government of Uganda and organizing partners, I thank you for joining us, and I officially declare this side event open and look forward to the insightful deliberations ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Albert. We appreciate your presence too to the side event. Thank you so much for giving us the opening remarks, and thank you for officially opening the side event. So I'll be your moderator for today. My name is Bridget Nkima once again. We were meant to have a keynote address, but the speaker is not yet on at the moment. So kindly allow me to move on to the panel discussion. So I'd like the panelists to introduce themselves, what they do, before we can start and go and ask the question. You're welcome. We have two panelists online, and we have three panelists physically. The online team, can you hear us? Are we audible? Someone can unmute and confirm. Okay, thank you, Mr. Way. Please. Yes.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Beatrice Kamakune. I am a researcher. I am a youth leader at the National Youth Council, and I'm also a grassroots mobilizer and a grassroots champion for sustainable development approaches.
Thank you.
Excited to be on this panel.
Thank you, Ms. Beatrice. You're welcome, and we are also happy to have you on the panel. Mr. Chivumbi.
Yes. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, who are attending virtually and even those who are on the ground. My name is Chivumbi Ernest Benjamin. I'm a journalist by profession. I head HICGI News Agency, but I'm also the president of the Planet Global Organization, which holds special consultative status with United Nations since 2007, and we've been doing work on the ground, participated in international conventions, made research, and also published several information. Our areas of expertise has also been promoting sustainable development goals, and our focus has been on forestation, on environmental patterns, and humanitarian aid, and more related. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, Mr. Chibumbi. And you sit here because I'd like to see you. Mr. Way, online, kindly unmute and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Okay, thank you, host. Thank you, everyone, to give me this opportunity to attend the panel. My name is Sherman Wei from China. Last year, I worked for International Fund of Agricultural Development in Western Africa, and during my experience here, I tried to start a platform to help the investors in China to finance some good quality projects in Africa. And I'm very curious about the talks of that event and hope to share my ideas with you all. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wei. We are happy to have you, and you're welcome to the side event virtually. Yes, Miss Amina.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Amina Natsali, and today I'm seated in the leadership of the Uganda Youth Coalition for SDGs, serving as the president, the first female president, of course. And I welcome you all to this session, and I'm happy to share with you whatever I have to share when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, Miss Amina, and welcome once again to you all panelists. I think we can dive into the questions. Once again, I'll read the theme or the title for our side event. It is Unlocking Alternative Financing and Capital Raising Mechanisms for Sustainable Development in Africa. And my first question goes to you, Ms. Amina. Yes, so as the president of the Youth Coalition, how do you think partnerships between governments, development partners, and the private sector can be strengthened to support alternative financing initiatives?
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, my name is Amina Natsali, and I'm the president for Uganda Youth Coalition for SDGs. Well, first of all, to everyone in this room, I want you to know that as Africa, we do not lack ideas. That's one thing for sure. We do not lack ideas. What we lack is investment in our people. And if we unlock this capital with equity and innovation, sustainable development is not a dream. Then it will be a decision for every one of us to take. So the question thrown at me is, how do we enhance partnerships? So how do we strengthen partnerships in this particular field of financing and unlocking alternative financing? Well, first of all, I'm honored to be speaking to you here, and I want us to know that we are all stakeholders in this. Whereas they are mentioning partnerships between government, between private sector, between whichever sector they are mentioning, every one of us is a stakeholder in this. Whereas even the little money you collect everywhere can be used to finance something. For example, those of us that are more inclined to the cultural institutions, Uganda, and the Uganda Kingdom has shown that they can actually do a lot of resource mobilization when that time comes for them to do that. We've just recently concluded Kabaka's birthday run, and each year that run happens and they are mobilizing finances towards a certain goal. For the last 5 years, I think it has been about building a hospital for women that are battling fistula. That alone is contributing to sustainable development, and it is still under goal number 3 of Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. So we have to look at everybody as a stakeholder. Even when you look at the religious institutions that we have if you're keen enough here in Uganda, you look at every religious institution. Where there is a mosque, you're likely going to find a school, and you're likely going to find a hospital there. Where there is a church, you're likely going to find a school, and you're likely going to find a hospital there. So that alone is, you might not notice that it is actually contributing to sustainable development, but in actual sense it is, because when that hospital or when that school is set, you're contributing to Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063 through quality education, which is goal number 4. So each one of us here is a stakeholder, and how we strengthen these people or these different stakeholders to make sure they understand what they are contributing to. When you visit church leaders, they might tell you they are doing this out of charity, or when you meet any other religious leader, they're going to tell you they are doing this out of charity, but not as a mode of contributing to Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063. So first of all, we need to do a lot of capacity building for these different stakeholders to understand that whereas we are contributing to something as a small stakeholder, as they want to, as they always term themselves, because whenever we are discussing these things, they always say, well, for us, we are just the other stakeholders. But everyone is, I want this point to be clear going forward. Every one of us is a stakeholder in here. So we need to do a lot of capacity building for our people. When we go back home there, tell them that when you do this, this is actually what you're contributing to. When they understand the bigger picture, they're likely going to do even more. When people in diaspora send you money, they are contributing directly to a certain goal of both agendas. It could be no poverty, it could be you starting up a business for them and you're going to employ people and you're directly contributing to decent work and economic growth. But these people do not understand that they're actually contributing to these agendas. And number one way of strengthening them to make sure these partnerships go forward is capacity building. Number two, for my young people, after you've done the capacity building, you need to have them still like capacity building, but they have to be ready. We have to have a readiness amongst the young people, because they are always at the end. They are always the recipients of they are always at the end goal of this whole thing. How are we making sure they are ready to receive whatever we are giving them? So I think those are the two ways we can strengthen these partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amina. Thank you so much for the insights. Indeed, we need capacity building, and we also need to make sure that we are ready for the information that we receive. And these are points that we need to take into consideration, but also to also input or to work with also the different religious institutions, because you cannot work alone. Partnerships are very key. So I'll move over to Mr. Chibumbi to also give us his insight on the same question as an ED at Heal the Planet global organization and also as a climate journalist. How do you think these partnerships between government, development partners, and the private sector can be strengthened to support alternative financing initiatives?
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. This is very, very important. One of the things that I have discovered is we will never have all what is enough. And you will never say that this is where resources are, please come and join. You will find out the criteria to access resources is extremely competitive, and whereby you have to show extraordinary belief and confidence amongst people who have funds that you're going to, number one, be accountable, you're going to deliver, and number two, there are going to be results, of course. So one of the things that I would like to say is that establishing multi-stakeholder platforms, regular forums for dialogue and coordination between actors, especially policy and regulatory support. Governments can create enabling environments, e.g. tax incentives for green investments, and then public-private partnerships, PPPs. This is core investment models can finance infrastructure and service delivery in underserved areas. Of course, I talked about transparency and accountability. enhancing our reporting standards and impact measurement to build trust. Trust is very important. They say we, the young people, we're not trusted so much. We are.
The power of memories has never been so meaningful than when time passes by. It's only in photography and videography that we can be able to tell what exactly happened in our lives. Do not lose the beautiful events of your life, from graduation to birthday parties, introduction ceremonies, parties that matter, wedding. All this and much more can be brought down into memories of photography and videography. At HICGI International Group, we understand what it means to keep these memories. We are inviting you today to contact us for the best rates in town for your photography and videography events. +256 702 13 75 66 or +256 773 13 75 66. We will cover and reach you at any time, any part of the world. No matter the time, we are here to keep your memories alive. Okay, videography and photography, your number one events memories.
Given resources, and we go and do weddings, we go for vacations, and we enjoy, instead of doing what we ask for resources too. So as we also yearn to get resources, we have to be very vigilant in terms of being transparent and being accountable. And then there are also innovation hubs and incubators. These support enterprises that offer socially inclusive solutions backed by donor or government funding. That's what I can say for now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Chibumbi. This was very, very insightful. Indeed, we need to be transparent. Once we receive this funding or this money, we need to use it for what it has been sent for. And of course, we also need to have the regular dialogues. So this can also inform people what is going on, what policies have changed, and what they need to align with their institutions. So I'd like to move on to Ms. Beatrice to also give us her insight on what she thinks about these partnerships while working with the National Youth Council. We know you work with so many communities all over Uganda, and I know these partnerships are very key for you. So kindly give us your insight on how these can support to help alternative financing mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the speakers have talked before literally delve into most of the aspects, but I'd like to emphasize the idea of blended finance and impact investment. So oftentimes, people will sit in boardrooms and decide where finance goes, especially if, say, the implementing organization meets the criteria, they meet all the paperwork that needs to, to be filled. But in actual sense, we need to first look at the impact on ground. And I want to emphasize the role of grassroots organizations in this conversation. Many of the reports we hold in the rooms are reports of impact from grassroots organizations. And these grassroots organizations are usually very underfunded, very incapacitated. They are not trained, they're not supported, and therefore oftentimes very difficult for them to access finance. I would recommend that we, first of all, look at blended finance. How do we finance organizations that already are having impact on ground? How do we support them to grow? How do we support them to be accountable for the finances they are given? How do we support them to grow their teams and be able to deliver? Because already it's evidence that grassroots organizations have a lot of impact in terms of sustainable development, in terms of impact on livelihoods, impacts on quality of life for many people, creating jobs for young people. And so for us to be able to evaluate the impact
of this financing already on ground, so that either you cut short those that are not producing results and finance the ones that could be producing more results, but also generally to capacity build. Capacity build is such, for us to be able to capacity build is such a good approach to financing, and how much financing can be able to bring in terms of realizing SDGs.
Thank you so much, Chris. I think the major common thing has been capacity building. So we really need to be keen on capacity building, but we also know as youth, so many have their organizations that come up, and these are diverse organizations. So they really need to be keen on financing these organizations that create impact and also accountable to the funding that is given.
I'll hand over to you, Mr. Wei. As someone from the Global South, I know you have a different perspective, because the opinions or what we've listened to is mostly from the Global North, and it's especially in Uganda here. So kindly let us know, with the work you've done with IFAD as an intern, how have these partnerships with government and development, and also, the development partners and also the private sector strengthened the support to alleviate financing initiatives? Sorry. You can kindly unmute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, we can.
Yes, it's a very nice question, and I think by speaking reflects on the idea of the spread three speakers before, I agree with that. We need to provide sustainable education and training to youth. As a youth, if I want to get the finance for the private capital for the government, I think first I have to let it trust us. Then we have to have enough capability to make our program come true and run in a good health. So, based on my understanding, my organization, International Fund of Agricultural Development, will design some projects to educate young people in the country, and also we will we'll give some specific funding to help the youth to learn how to finance from government and how to finance from NGO or finance from some private capitals. And in this process, the youth is the center. We link government, private capital, and also some investors, some foreign investors into our business. And finally, we use the funding to achieve our goal. In this process, we also help these fundings to profit, so we can contribute to a sustainable development. It's like a circle. We get funding and we have the fundings and profits, and more fundings come to us and help us to realize big goal. So we can build up this sustainable model and make it bigger and bigger. And I think that's what I see in Africa, and what the foreign investors want us to see in the next years in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wei. Indeed, we need to be capable to make these programs come true when we put them into implementation. Thank you for that. And also to design programs to educate the youth so that they are sure and they know what they will be doing when they are implementing these small projects in their communities and also in the grassroots or wherever they are. So before I can leave to the next person, I'd also like to ask you another question. Working with IFAD, what alternative financing mechanisms have proven effective in mobilizing resources for sustainable development?
Excuse me, can you pass the microphone?
Okay. Having worked with IFAD, what alternative financing mechanisms have been proven effective in mobilizing resources for sustainable development?
Okay. I can share how one started. I love office. It's about the rural finance. It's very, very easy to finance in cities, but in the countryside, there is no effective internet, and maybe there is no bank there. How can we help some farmers and some smallholders in the countryside to finance their project? Is very important. So we are talking with psychologists that introduce one successful program or event that will set some points in the countryside. And this small points has some managers. And these managers will teach the farmers and help them to get some funding when the financial organization in cities. In this process, we will also set up specialists to.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wei. Indeed, the points you've given for how this mechanism
is under development impact. You see, say for example, the development of a road to the airport.
That road has been developed under that form of mechanism. We're paying back in the future, but with development already on ground. And that sort of financing can be, passed down to education. I know that you're all aware of the Higher Institution Financing Board that gives loans to university students to access education at the university. That's a form of financing that is already tied to impact. Do you access education? And if there is a way government can now pay back later, then it's easier for us to tie that. And so mechanisms like that therefore give us more results, and we don't waste money, but also money goes to the people who need it most, and the other mechanism I have seen also still on that, I think the Ministry of Health had a program that was addressing maternal health, and it was still tied to impact. The money in this case is tied to the fact that at the end of the day, there is impact. The private people investing in this money, their money is tied to the fact that at the end of the day, we will receive results. And if we don't receive results, they actually do not get paid. That is how development impact bonds work. And that addresses the question again of accountability. Our major challenge in this country is stealing money. It is such a big issue that money does not achieve that for which it was intentioned for. So if we tie finances to impact, tie finances to reach the final person, also, say for example, things like mobile money, they enable grassroots people to access finance without going through very many bureaucratic systems. I mean, mobile money, MTN gives mobile money if you can build credit on your own mobile phone. There's no background checks, your credit speaks for you. Now, such mechanisms avail finance even for the last person, but also, like I already said, that last person usually is the one who has impact, is the one changing lives. If you change those lives, you're sending children to school, you are availing medical care, you are providing jobs. At the end of the day, we are achieving at the level of sustainable development goal as a country, as a continent, but even as a people. Yeah, the other mechanism that I love is the social impact funds. Again, we tie finance to what social impact this finance will address. Say, for example, we are talking about addressing the issue of teenage pregnancies and girls dropping out of school, and usually it's because they are poor, they have menstrual health issues or menstrual health poverty around there. But if we tie private funders tie their finance to that particular issue and address it, and ensure that actually the people we're supposed to address it for are trained, equipped, given enough capacity to achieve the end results, these funds will first of all be effective, but they're also alternative financing mechanism, because it's coming from private investors who usually want profit for their money. If we have impact, they get their money, and we're good to go. And we've cut out corruption, which is the major hindrance along the journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, accountability is very, very key. Because if someone gives you money and you use it the right way, you attract more funding. So this is very, very key. But before we can move on, how do you think these financing mechanisms?
For more than 10 years, HICGI International Group has been your number one partner in tours and travel consultancy. We also do real estate, legal services, ICT services, and much more. Find us on kebinternationalgroup.com or write to us at info@kebinternationalgroup.com. You may also write to us at PO Box 35827 Kampala, Uganda, or visit us on Namaswahi off Entebbe Highway. Call us on +256 200937566 or +256 39486 32 or 46. Or you can send us a plus on WhatsApp on +256 752 1375 66. Cab International Group, your number one rail business partner.
Can you say that to enhance social inclusion and benefit
For me, at the end of the day, inclusion means that you have designed a program
to cater for that particular issue and address it. So I'm going to talk about intentional design of these finances. For us to avail a pool of money and say address whichever issue you can is very wrong, and for many reasons, and for very many times we've not achieved the end goal and the end results. So when we do we design financing mechanisms that center youth, women, and youth, women, and rural communities. Again, like I said, I'm very pro grassroots because I see a lot of results at the grassroots level. If we design financing mechanisms that sort those three groups of people, women, youth, and the rural communities, we are including everyone. I mean, someone once said that actually if you include women in any sort of program, you've included everyone, because women will look out for their husbands, they'll look out for their sons, they'll look out for their children, they'll look out for the grand old people. So if you include those three groups of people, by designing these mechanisms to make access to finance very easy for them, short, non-bureaucratic, and achieving the final goal, you have achieved on inclusion. Number two, capacity building. I don't know how much we can talk about capacity building, but the major reason why we do not have as much, we've not achieved as we should have, is because the people we intend to address the issues at the grassroots level are incapacitated in terms of training, they're incapacitated in terms of management. There are organizations in Kampala which are thriving. Why don't we have those already developing and growing organizations hold the hand of grassroots levels who perhaps we think maybe they don't know how to manage the finances? Teach them how to manage the finances. Teach them how to mobilize finances. Teach them how to grow the money that they already have, and you will have huge impact. So capacity building is also a way of inclusion. When you do capacity building, especially for young people, for women groups, and rural organized organizations, you'll be including almost everyone. Then finally, if we can be able to avail incentives for those people who are performing well. Someone talked about tax holidays for young entrepreneurs who are starting businesses and trying to address challenges, maybe in green energy, maybe in dealing away with garbage and sorting those sorts of things. If you can avail incentives for those young people, you are in one way or another going to be very inclusive in your financing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Pichu. I think this has been really, really insightful. The capacity building is key. Incentives are very, very key. And also designing programs that cater for the issues and finances is very, very key. So I'll move on to Ms. Ray online. I hope you're cool with that.
Yes,
Okay, yes. So with
The financing mechanisms that you shared, of course, the rural financing, sending specialists to teach these communities how best they can be able to implement good projects. How can these mechanisms be tailored to enhance social inclusion and benefit marginalized communities?
Okay. I agree with actually, our mechanism focus on the mechanism and also the rural people because in our project we set a specific percent of the benefits. For example, half of the benefits from our project should be with children and some youth leaders in the team. And because we have this fixed percentage, we can make sure our project can help some regional people because most of the time ways is not by some organizations and also some companies. And still remember on one mission, when I go to the countryside to see our program, a mother of 10 children, how I can say that, now she became the leader of her village and because of our financing projects. And we are helping her to produce more food to feed her family and children and also help her to buy some animals and sell her new things. This moment is very moving and made me realize that our project set a percent of benefits and help the men and children to get funded and help them to start business. We can help to support a sustainable development because the women and the youth is the future and it's also the key engine of the day. And another thing I want to mention is that we will build up a data system to collect the information from the people we have their finance. Based on this data system, we can identify which group of people needs more help, so that when we promote a new program, we can put this information in our program in our brain, so that we can balance the interest between different groups and make sure we can help the people who needs more attention from society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wei. These are very, very good points to take in. Indeed, having a data system to track impact or those that have been financed is key because impact is tracked with numbers. So this is very, very good. And also empowering the people in the community to be leaders, to lead on the project. This will also help in inclusion so that the project is not just for the donor or the person that's bringing in the funding, but it's also community owned. So you have like a partnership between the community and also the funders and also maybe the government. So these are very key points. Thank you so much, Mr. Wei. Ms. Amina, kindly tell us how these financing mechanisms that you shared can be tailored to enhance social inclusion and benefit marginalized communities.
Okay, thank you again, moderator. Well, I think my other panelists have guided us well on this. Number one, whereas Beatrice said we need, was it intentional design? I would say we need participatory design, whereby you involve everyone right from the bottom to the top. We have an issue of producing solutions for non-existing problems, whereby you sit in a boardroom like this one where we are, you think for people who are in the village and you think you know them better and you haven't involved them and you want to design a strategy, a financing strategy for them. That's why you're going to face issues of accountability because they weren't involved in the first place. So I would go for participatory design and then include intentional design, which now prioritizes women, youth, refugees, and all the different persons that could be helpful in this. And then the other thing is to decentralize the funds and make sure they reach to the grassroots communities out there that are really in need of these funds, because we also have that issue whereby a fund is intended for something different and it ends up going somewhere else. We need to, and all this is because it is a centralized fund, the government is handling it, and yet they have local governments to help them with managing these funds effectively. So we can decentralize them and have these community circles, community-led funds, and local government leaders involved. Then the other thing is tech integration. We need a lot of technology because we need a database like Mr. Way mentioned, and we cannot do this without the use of technology. I don't know how it was done in the previous centuries, but this century calls for one to use a lot of technology. The example here was given of Wendy app, which does not require one to have a bank account, but they just need the app to access the money. So I think that's how we can make these mechanisms tailored to our different communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amina. I was actually looking for the point on technology. We use AI a lot, so this technology is very key. Also, the disruptive AI technology is also key. I hope we've read about it. And I think also decentralization is very key. Like you said, we need to make use of the local government. It should not be the government in town handling all the financing, but we can make it decentralized so that we reach other communities in the areas. And also participatory design. This is very key. You cannot think for others. So doing the research in the communities to find out what their issues are, what they need is very key. So thank you so much, Ms. Amina. So Mr. Chivumbi, as a climate journalist, yes, what mechanisms or how can these mechanisms be tailored to enhance social inclusion and benefit marginalized communities?
Thank you so much. President Rabana, I welcome you. We have been deliberating. I was with him at COP29 in Azerbaijan. Those 2 weeks were significant because of protests, and that is how money was increased. But we want to see the money, real money, because we're not seeing it. Anyway. All right. So community-based financing models are important. Village savings and loan associations and cooperatives can be integrated into larger financing structures to include rural populations. There has been when 1986 we had so many cooperatives, and we had the Bogisu Cooperatives Union. We had those ones who are doing what. So I'm here these days. Buganda also has something called PEOSA. You know, such funding which people underestimate when people meet together is very significant, because what I cannot do as alone, when we are together as a group, we can achieve. And that's how I've seen Kabaka telling people to mobilize funding, save, and then borrow. And when you borrow, do exactly what you promised. Like earlier I said, don't borrow to go and do a wedding. Don't borrow to go and do a party. Don't borrow to go and have a vacation or honeymoon in Hawaii. Do exactly what you've requested money for. And then participatory budgeting. This is including community voices and decision making, which ensures funds are allocated to local priorities. So priorities once identified are very important. And then gender lens investing. This is targeting funds toward women-led enterprises or sectors that predominantly employ women. You know, women are a backbone of our economy and society. People who underestimate women, I don't understand. Because if a woman tells you something and you as a man say, I will not do it, you may find out a problem when you don't agree. So women have been so much important in encouraging us, identifying where risks are. First, we can look so much short-sighted, but women can see somewhere deeper than you think, and by the time you realize, it's very important. So if you invest into women,
they will multiply. And someone also said that if you educate a woman, you've educated what? You've educated the nation. Yeah. And then social impact bonds. These can incentives outcomes in education, health, and livelihood programs are tailored for underserved populations. Karamoja has been one of the forgotten places of our country. When we are concentrating so much on other places, we leave out those marginalized people. So I remember there was also a fund for northern Uganda to develop northern Uganda after the war, because NLA did a very destructive a decade of time there, and people needed to have roads again, infrastructures again, planting. So let's look out for those also forgotten people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chibumbi. This is very key. Before you actually leave your seat, I still have a question for you.
Yes.
So of course, using the Kabaka example, this is very key, because we know in communities, if they do not listen to the president or to even us, at least they'll listen to their local leaders. If it's not the leaders, at least the cultural institutions. So this is very, very key. Maybe this is the last question I'll be asking you. What specific challenges and opportunities in financing marine conservation, what opportunities or challenges have been seen in financing marine conservation projects in Uganda?
Thank you so much. Although Uganda seems to be a landlocked country, it has significant fresh water ecosystems and marine or conservative needs around the lakes like Victoria. We have Edwardi, we have Bonyonyi, we have Albert. Almost this country is endowed. I've never seen a country so much blessed with fresh water. We're talking about fresh water. Like Uganda, everywhere you go there is fresh water, and you get surprised when even after having fresh water, in the dry season you see people's crops are dying up. The other day they were telling people, Katikio Charles Peter Maiga, to go and plant mwani, which is coffee, and I happened to meet one of the farmers. He said that we planted, but we don't know where sunshine came, and it's destroyed. And he said, but whereas we were crying, there was a neighbor of mine. For him, he was doing it.
Of all the strength that your sweat goes, in every single moment that you wake up early in the morning, go to sleep, bed late, you want to have a beautiful home. Acquiring a beautiful home makes your dreams come true. We at HICGI International Group are proud to extend our deepest in strength, expertise and team to make your home beautiful. We do stone building and carving on all the nature of buildings that you would like to hold. Stones make a home so beautiful that you cannot underestimate the beauty of stones. From every perfect stone, every carve and every crafting, we do and we achieve this. At HICGI International Group, we don't only do that, we also paint your homes. Every nature of paint that you would love to make your home beautiful is available at HICGI International Group. A well-dedicated team is here to make it happen for you. Contact us today so we can make your home the most beautiful and secure of all at friendly prices. That is what we are promising you, with a lot of dedication and sincerity, honesty, and every category that you want to achieve. This is what we are talking about. HICGI International Group, your number one partner to make a beautiful home for you, with great services of painting and stone. This is what we are. Call us today on +256 773 1375 66.
and the guy was harvesting a lot. So in spite of having adequate water, we still have to think about harvesting that water, doing irrigation measures, and then turning that water as a country which is also surviving on agriculture to utilize that. And there's also been one of the challenges has been limited awareness and policy focus. Marine conservation often gets overshadowed by terrestrial biodiversity priorities. There's also been inadequate funding, budget allocations for aquatic ecosystems are very minimal. Pollution and overfishing. These threats require coordinated regional investment strategies. The president decided that we were doing a lot of overfishing, and even the nets that we were using were disastrous. It was catching a lot of fish, and actually there was a time when a narrow punch you would not even eat a narrow punch because they use what butimba kokota, which takes over all the fish. So the president decided to deploy UPDF, one, to safeguard and ensure that people are not using those bad nets, and then also to allow fish to grow. And then I've seen Uganda exporting again mputa, and also me eating mputa. The mputa which we used to eat was yali awunya nnyo naye ennaku ezaali tekyawunya nnyo. Okira naye twazzemu okulya ku mputa ki ewooma. And ennuuni, what is ennuuni in English? I hear it is one of the most expensive things. They use it to when they are doing surgeries. Chinese and other big powers are using it. So enun is even more expensive in that emputa. So that is very, very important. There's also been a weak enforcement capacity, difficult to monitor vast water bodies and enforce conservation policies. So it's important that as we try to navigate and also conserve our waters and also enforce these policies, we also remain focused, because we don't want to, number one, remove it from the private people, to the general public, give it to the hands of few people, and then they eat alone. No, that would not be would not be good, because water lakes are for everyone. People should be allowed to fish. I have a friend of mine the other day was they get permits in the Lake Victoria, and then they do their own fishing there, and they get a lot of money from that. He's selling some of the fish in Congo. I also the other day wanted to be part of him. I'm still raising capital for it. I know hopefully I'll get, but that's what I can also say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chibumbi. This is very, very insightful. Indeed, we also need the Marine Police to be able to enforce these policies. But last week, I also attended a side event on the ARFSD and on life below water, and they really said they were the least funded SDGs. So we really need to look for, or make sure that we advocate for more funding for them in our communities. So over to you, Mr. Wei. Lastly, having worked or working with IFAD, what specific challenges and opportunities have been evident in financing marine conservation projects?
Hi. Actually, I don't want to share understanding of this question, based on my experience, because I want to introduce another story in China, because you know the very and also the very we can use art to make us realize this. For example, in my country, there are some artificial intelligence company and also some climate change company. They use some advanced technology to detect the fish and also the pollution in ocean, and we can use them to help us to solve this problem. And then they will share their achievements on their website, and also they attract more and more people realize what they are doing. And I realized that some of these projects are also shared in the 2005 ECOSOC grant in the New York City. Is very meaningful when I sit years and listen to their stories, how they help their project to protect fish in ocean and how they get funding when some private actors or when some governments before them to their more ambitious goal. So I think to answer this question, we need to use some technologies, and we also have to get more and more people see what we are doing, so that they can join us and also maybe just contribute to our community to do more research and develop more advanced technologies, or they can help us to build up a deep relationship with the government, so that the government will publish some policies to help us to promote our project. And that's a story I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wei. This is actually very key. Doing research to find out how best we can support this conservation or these marine conservation projects is very, very key. But also using the technology, like we spoke about in the previous question, to detect what's causing pollution in the water. How can this be supported, or how can this be reduced? So thank you so much. And also coming up with projects just for funding for life below water is very, very, very key. Thank you so much. So I'll move on to Ms. Beatrice to give us the challenges and opportunities in financing marine conservation projects, having worked or still working with the National Youth Council, but also in the different I know you had some projects.
Thank you. Not really my area of expertise,
but and like many people have said, it's an area that many of us don't get to talk about, or even to figure, unless for communities that live near the water bodies, or young people that get their livelihood around the water bodies. But maybe most importantly, like all SDGs, I think that continuously it's very important for us to have data on these on these issues. For example, how much data is there around financing the marine life and water conservation? If there was enough data, if we can have more research around that area so that data is available for us, then I mean, for the very few communities around us, or for the many young people who live around water and get their livelihood around water, and also addressing their challenges, which fall into, again, the SDG, like, access to education, quality health for those communities particularly. It would be very important for us to have data around that, for us to be able to support and to help them. But again, continuously seeking for community and directly the people that are involving them in conversations, because then we will not know how to help and support and address their challenges if we do not directly involve them. Because many of us, whereas poverty is a reality of many young people, the challenges of people that live around water bodies, marine, who are the people who live around there, face a slightly different challenge from what many of us will have experienced. So having data, but also consulting them to know how can they be supported, and for even opening them to private investors, because many of them are actually directly under government. There's very little private investment around marine and water conservation. So if we open it to private investment, maybe it could also open the opportunities for that conversation to go deeper.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vicky, for this insight. This is very key. Again, I'm looking for this community. I've seen cases where you go to a community, you got a project to support them, but they're not willing to take it on. So it's very key to actually ask this community to consult how they can be supported, but also address the challenges they have. For this marine conservation, you find maybe when the water bodies maybe the level of the water rises, you'll have the floods, they're not able to go to school.
poor regulation. So this is very, very key. Lastly, Ms. Amina, having worked with the youth as the president of the Youth Coalition, I'm sure you've worked with some of the youth who are practicing this marine conservation. What challenges and opportunities have been evident in financing marine conservation projects?
Thank you very much, Bridget. Well, the number one challenge, like everyone mentioned, is the lack of awareness. And when people want to give you money, they want to be aware of what they are putting their money to. Now, my young people do not know what marine life is. I think it was on the 6th day of December that Daily Monitor published an article of worrying concerns about Lake Victoria. I don't know how many people in this room read about that article. It was speaking about how Lake Victoria is turning green and how the green algae, that algae is very, very bad for marine life and very, very bad for human life as well. And mark you, we are surviving on Lake Victoria for most of our water as a country. So I don't know how many of us were at Munyonyo. Did you see how the lake looked like when you took a closer look? Actually, I noticed the green algae myself. And I was like, oh, this is serious. And people are not aware that such a phenomenon is actually happening. And it is very, very harmful to their own lives and marine life. So we need to be really, really keen on creating awareness about these things. Then the other thing, the other challenge about marine life and financing is political prioritization. I don't think we have anyway, I don't know if there is any framework or law that really speaks to marine life in Uganda. I've seen the army beat people around Lake Victoria. I've worked at Kalangala at a certain point. That's why, Chivumbi, I do not want to agree with you when you say there is weaker implementation. Actually, they are doing great work. The army has really done great work. But I think that it's also a question of what are the priorities as our nation when it comes to marine life. And then the mindsets of the people out there are wrong. When you work with those island communities, it is actually very intriguing. You're put into another universe that is within Uganda. You're like, okay, this happens here, and you're surprised. So those are two challenges. That is political prioritization, and then the mindsets of the people, which is also another challenge that could be hindering funding to marine life. Then the other thing is a lack of tailored financing models for lake-based livelihoods and conservation. I know there are some initiatives that are doing work around people in communities that are on islands and around Lake Victoria and different island communities. But when you go into these strategies, they are not always tailored to fit in these communities. They are just people bringing alien stuff to these communities, which is still a challenge. Then I think those are the challenges. Then the opportunities that exist within that that marine life space. There is a lot of potential in the blue economy if we promote fishing, aquaculture, and tourism. I mean, we have the best water bodies if you ever move around East Africa, and we are not promoting them enough for people to know that they really exist. Then the other thing is nature-based solutions that come out of marine life. And you know, if someone is innovative enough, I actually say to myself when I was in Monyonya, I wish I was still innovative as I was 5 years ago. I would have already thought of a solution to curb this algae that is blooming on Lake Victoria. But my young people, that's something for us to think about. How are we saving our lake? How are we saving the only freshwater body that we have around that keeps us alive? So we need to look at those solutions that could be capable of attracting funding towards that. Then maybe as another opportunity is there is a chance for us to create a community conservation trust whereby we mobilize local fishermen, young people, and everybody interested to make sure that they put something for our lakes and rivers for us to work in that direction. Other than that, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has really been insightful. I think we've all learnt a lot, and I hope we had our pens, our books, and we've noted down all these key points. That was it from our panelists. I would like us to give a round of applause to our panelists online and also in here. Thank you so much. Up next, we're going to have a presentation on successful financing models from Mr. James Muhwezi. I hope you're still with us online. Kindly unmute and let us know if you're still with us online. Oh, okay. All right, he was on, but we can just give him a few minutes to get back on. He will be giving us a presentation on successful financing models, and he's the representative from the Climate Finance Unit of the Ministry of Finance. Okay, let's just give him a minute. But once again, thank you so much, our panelists. Thank you so much, Ms. Beatrice. Thank you so much, Ms. Amina, Mr. Chibumbi, Mr. Wei online. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from the US. And thank you also for the insights that you've shared with us and also given to us. I hope we have learned. Yeah. Oh, yes. Does anyone want to add? Do you have a point to add to what was shared? Yes, please. Feel free to share.
My insights are going basically to be from some of the questions that actually were discussed by the panelists. One, it is how to strengthen partnership in climate finance mobilization. I'll be supplementing or just a few. Well, some of the panelists indicated that we need to have like an impact-driven financing mechanism, and particularly for the grassroots organizations. Yes, it's quite very vital that the grassroots organizations have had a lot of impact. Yet on the other side, the means or the means for them to apply for most of these grants, it's very it's still very low. So we need to see how we can strengthen the capacity building for those grassroots organizations, youth organizations, women organizations in grant proposal writings. Yes, so we need to strengthen that, because most of them, they have ideas, most of them, they are doing some perfect work that is creating an impact, but they cannot access they cannot access money. But then still on the issue of the private partnership, I think we need I know a lot of us are from the entrepreneurship formal sector. We need to strengthen the corporate social responsibility programs. Yes. Now, this is one way how we can easily tackle or channel a lot of finance in tackling most of these SDGs. Yes. Unlike some companies, a few companies which are doing so, but most of the private companies and the profit-oriented ones.
Welcome. My name is Omuka Francis from JHL Productions Uganda Limited, the makers of the iced espresso, ready-to-drink coffee. This is purely a Ugandan coffee, starting from the seeds to the packaging to the production, all Ugandan products. Well, at the moment we have it in two. One that is sweet having sugar in it, cane sugar. That's why we call it the sweet original. The second is the original without sugar. This coffee has no additives, no preservatives, and has a shelf life of up to 18 months. We pack it in cartons of 12. having 12 sachets inside the box. The same for the sweet one, the 12 inside the box. So our coffee is purely Ugandan. Serving it, you can have it both cold or hot. You can have your coffee the way you want it. For this time, let me make a demo of the hot coffee. I'll take the sweet original, pour it in a cup. It's purely coffee and expressed coffee. Add hot water. And there you go. Your coffee is ready for serving. This coffee can be got at any of the supermarkets around the Mega. We have it at Platia, that's at Kololo. We also have it at Legume, that's after the American Embassy in Zambia. You can get our coffee there. It's purely Ugandan product. It's ready to drink, no additives, no preservatives, and it has a shelf life of up to 18 months. You can get it both in the one with sweet, that is the sweet, and original. Having sugar, no sugar. So meaning you all got the coffee you need. We have a sales number. In case you want to get in touch with us, call this number 0766 530 248. We'll be able to receive your calls. It's both on WhatsApp. We shall be able to serve you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Social responsibility program is still what? It's still there. So we need to work on we strengthen that, and we shall have quite a lot of money, because there is a lot of money actually from the private profit-oriented institutions than that it is on the grant or on the donation the donation platform. So we need also to work on that. And then maybe also I will add something to do on the challenges and opportunities encountered in the financing marine projects. Fortunately, we are having a project actually. We have a project on Lake Victoria which we began last year, and we are soon releasing a documentary. Especially our focus was on plastic pollution on Lake Victoria. Yes, most of the research shows that there are some companies, of course, which I will not air out. They have a lot of most of their products compose a highest percentage on Lake Victoria, and it's quite alarming. And then besides that, there were speakers saying that there is limited intervention, especially in people investing into that area. It's a problem actually. When we were doing that documentary, we came a few groups. One of the group is junior rangers who are doing some kind of plastic collecting, but they are doing it on a voluntary basis. These people are not supported. They don't have their safety gears are not appropriate, especially to the winds on the lake. They don't have enough fuel. So we will soon release that documentary such that we can help them get more financing. But also we still need to we are also working on some issue on the sports part. We have been partnering with the Uganda Wildlife Education Center, UWEC. There is some program, though it's not yet launched, although we have been doing it on other water bodies in Western Uganda. We normally carry out like the sports canoe racing. People participate in racing, but then we are going to employ that same strategy on Lake Victoria to ensure we raise more financial resources to support some of the initiatives we have so far identified who are participating in the removal of the plastics. So there are a lot of opportunities when it comes to the marine sector, like the ecotourism, people, the hospitality accommodations that are being built around most of the major lakes. We have the boat racing projects. Then we also have these waste projects. Of course, let's say for instance, these junior rangers whom we interacted with, they are collecting, and then they have a certain site somewhere in Rubaga, so they keep piling them, and then they still lack some kind of technology to help them in adding value to those plastics. Yes, but there is a lot of opportunities, though we still have more challenges for people to participate on in the marine sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Jen, you can kindly share your screen and give your presentation. You can unmute.
Beatrice, you can give us your parting shots. I know you'll be leaving, but we shall have a Q&A session for the panelists that are still on. You can wait? Okay, thank you. Okay, okay. Yes, you had some questions? Yes.
But I'm also passionate about science, technology. I'm a student and pursuing science, technology. So when we come here and talk about technology,
These are things that I think we need to put more focus on. Someone has just mentioned lack of technology, where at the place where they're trying to try to use those waste products to develop meaningful stuff. So if we can find ways of integrating technology in almost everything, because it cuts across most of the SDGs, yes. So how do we get financing? How do we drive, or how can we drive derive mechanisms that tailor and address the unique challenges of innovation driven initiatives? Because as a young innovator, I've been in different spaces, and we find that the funding that we get is often foreign aid, and most of these ideas are never scaled up, so they end at prototype stage. So you find yourself getting innovative, trying to develop your country, but that innovation cannot go past prototype stage. So how can we have that funding enable us as young innovators scale up, but also how can we invest more in the research of the young people out there? Because I've faced challenges with research, and we have a mentor, what is it called? We have a thing of people that do research are like the professors or doctors. But if I'm curious, I would want to know certain details, and I may not access some of those. So there is also need to bridge the gap between us, the young innovators and researchers, and also those that are already the professors. Because I feel like most of this funding is driven out to the top officials. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. What I see the presentation, just one, just allow our presenter, then we can go to the presentation. That's right. Thank you. Mr. James, you can kindly go ahead.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon. You can hear me? Okay. So I'm glad to be here at this knowledge, I think I would call it a knowledge sharing session. And I want to appreciate the Gro Foundation, not for inviting me this time, but for the efforts and opportunities you are giving to Ugandans to share knowledge on some of the topical issues. Some of the sessions that I have attended myself and learned a lot. And this is very important because knowledge is key. Somewhere in the book of Hosea, I will share with you that God was saying that my people have suffered because of lack of knowledge. If I remember very well, I think it was Hosea 4:6. My people are suffering because of lack of knowledge. So if we can solve the question of knowledge, that people have information, people are aware, especially about the development initiatives that are happening, the opportunities around our spaces, I think we can be better off than we are right now. So I want to thank the Gro Foundation for organizing such sessions that impart knowledge and skills to our communities, to our Ugandans. Having said that, my name is James Nkwezi, and in terms of the background and education, I hold a master's degree in financial management from Bopara University in India. I spent in India 5 years, and I saw what was happening with the Indians, why the Indians are so developmental. I am bringing this out because of the topic that we have here for me to discuss: unlocking alternative financing and capital raising mechanisms for sustainable development. And it's a very, very important topic. I have heard my friends saying, the Indians make money, they come to Uganda with nothing, but they make a lot of money, and then this money is repatriated back to their country, they leave us suffering. And one of the colleagues also was not saying, now what are you saying and what can you possibly change about the situation of Indians developing, and we are not. Then I realized that we have nothing much to change except being able to build our readiness to also favorably compete and grab opportunities that are around us. That is the only way we can move forward. And I want to appreciate you who have come to this knowledge sharing session, because it's very key. You would be somewhere else doing something else, but you chose to be here. So I was there physically witnessing how these guys are doing their things. But key of the things that they do that make them rich is financial discipline. These people are financially disciplined. Where an Indian can walk, they will walk. Where they can ride a bike, they will ride a bike, but be able to save a rupee. Their currency is called a rupee. And so that financial discipline and aggressiveness, and they look for knowledge. They do a lot of research, and I've heard that you are researchers and entrepreneurs. So it is very important to integrate some of these things we learn from our friends into our development agenda. And so currently I have worked with within the microfinance and banking space for a very long time. I think since 2004 up to 2014, I was in the area of banking and microfinance. And I have worked with a lot of cooperatives, and I had one of you talking about village savings and loan associations. Those are groups of people coming together to pool money for intermediation. Intermediation means money is moving from those who have and those who need the money. That is what we call financial intermediation. And before I proceed, I just want to request that you be like one of the pastors of the ladies who was attending the church one time, and then when she reached home, and she was accusing those that she had left home who had not made it to church. And then they asked her, who was the pastor preaching today? The lady did not know the name of the pastor, and she did not even hear what the pastor had preached, but he said, Oyo Musajja, Kale preaching you know? The pastor was such a good preacher, but what the preacher preached, and what the message was, and what was the name of the preacher, she had no idea. So in this session, if you forget anything at all, there are certain definitions and statements I want to make that I would want you to remember, even if you forget other sections of the presentation this evening. And one of them is sustainable development. I want to break it down. So those are some of the statements that I would want to break down and ensure that by the time we finish this session, you really are equipped and know what they really mean. Maybe for the Gro Foundation, I also want to be self-sufficient because current.
James?
Yeah?
Just a minute. You guys, you dropped off, so we missed some of the points. Can you please repeat?
Where did I lose you from?
On unpacking sustainable development.
Oh yes, because my topic is about unlocking alternative financing and capital raising mechanisms for sustainable development. So the question is, what is sustainable development? Sustainable development is a huge area of study. It has got a huge scope. So that is one thing I want to break down. The other thing I was mentioning was on alternative financing. My question was also, why would we want to know the alternative financing mechanisms? I would be curious to know if we understand what are the current and conventional financing mechanisms now, and what are those means that we need to use to now raise capital. What are the various platforms? What are the instruments? And that is an area that I want to break down for us to understand. But before I go any further, I also want to be selfish a bit here because I work with the Climate Finance Unit. And with the Climate Finance Unit, we talk of greening the financial service sector, greening our sectors. If you are in agriculture, we want to green the agricultural sector. If you are in energy, we want to green the energy. Generally, we want to green the economy. So if we talk about greening the economy, I also want us to understand. The reason I want to take that path, it is not so much for selfish reasons, but because that is where the world is going, like I'm going to present to you. We must green everything because of the issue of climate change. So what is sustainable development? Sustainable development is a concept stand from 1987, when we read the report by Brackland, talking about the three key pillars that form that constitute sustainable development. Sustainable development would mean being able to use the natural resources that we have now. And I had somebody from the audience talking about natural resources. What are those natural resources? Now, for me, from where I sit, I talk of natural capital. Somebody was mentioning the rivers, the mountains, whatever we have, the forests, all that is natural capital. Sustainable development would mean, are we able to use what we have now as natural capital in a manner that the future generation will find it and be able to benefit from it? That is the sustainable development. So inevitably, even if I was not working with the climate finance unit, other Ministry of Finance, I would still kind of orient the topic and the discussion into that direction, because that is what sustainable development means. That kind of intergenerational equity, that you are mindful that while I'm using this river, I'm growing water from it. While I'm using this forest, in 10, 20, 50 years to come, my neighbor, my colleague, my child should be able to find it and use it in the way I'm using it. That is sustainable development. So why would I be interested in tailoring my presentation into that space? Because of the following reasons. As you know, we have got a paradox, what I would call a development finance paradox now in the country. Why? Because we have got abundance as Uganda in terms of resources. So abundant, like our colleagues have already talked about. That is the natural capital. Number two, we have got the youth. These days you hear of demographic dividend. The youth constitute a bigger portion in our population, as you know. But the saddest thing is that around 42.6% of our youth are in the need category. They are not in employment, they are not in education, nor are they even in the training. And the training that does not mean being in class, by the way. If you read our recent UBOS 2024 report, you will find this data. So the youth between 15 and 24 years, around 42%, they are in the need category. They are not working, they are not in employment, they are not in education, and they are not even being trained. And that is very, very dangerous. We have got abundance, but because we have no skills, we lack knowledge and information sometimes on some things where we tap opportunities, we remain in the category of not going forward. I don't want to say forward. We remain in the category of things are not shifting, if I may borrow that word, despite the abundance in terms of the natural capital and in terms of demographic dividend. And that is the reason I started by thanking you who are responding to some of these knowledge and training sessions that Gro Foundation is organizing. Because without knowledge, we have been, according to what you heard from Hosea. Number two, why I will orient my theme to greening Africa's financial systems to be able to unlock innovative capital for sustainable development, which I've already defined, is that the traditional aid that we know of is going down, is dwindling. The traditional aid is going down. I'm sure now you know what is happening around the globe with our Trump cutting the. First of all, before he cut, he withdrew from the Paris Agreement. Now, when he withdraws from the Paris Agreement, he starts withdrawing funding to supporting other countries in the world that need the traditional support they have been giving. Now, correspondingly, the European countries now have a deficit because some of the aid has been going to Europe, for example, to support Ukraine. And now what has happened correspondingly is that the European countries and the UK have cut what we call overseas development assistance, ODA, has been cut significantly. Germany has cut, I think, a significant amount. Why? Because they now want to focus on their own countries to go and build security around themselves to protect their sovereign nations. Where does that leave us? This is not to be so worried because we still have opportunities around climate change or climate financing, because all the countries around the world are so worried about climate change. Recently, you saw a lot of fires in the US, a lot of flooding happening. Meanwhile, I want to mention that earthquake is not an aspect of climate change. So the earthquake that has happened, we do not associate it to the climate change. Those are geological movements that cause the earthquakes. But you know what is happening around the globe anyway, floods and all that. So while the traditional grants are reducing, we still see opportunities in the climate financing space that we can tap into. But what is the challenge and what can possibly obstruct or stop us from accessing such opportunities? One of them is the readiness. We are not ready. So we need to build the readiness for us to be able to access these opportunities. I heard one of you saying that we are entrepreneurs, we have tried to do some work, but the money keeps going to the big people. This is not the case. We even have people who are not considered big in our terms, but they are doing something, they are aligned, they have built the readiness over time, and they have now started accessing some significant amounts of climate finance. The only thing is that sometimes we are not patient. You want to try out something today and you want it to make it work tomorrow. And that is a problem. It has also happened to me, much as I'm from the finance background. You know, the pressures are all over the place and sometimes they move you to be so impatient. When you start something, it has to incubate, it has to grow, and then finally it has to give you the rewards and dividends. So usually we need some little time to pilot innovations, especially you who are innovators. You have to pilot an innovation, you have to do a proof of concept, you have to watch it grow, you have to learn from it, and the learnings that you get now push you to modify, make modifications, and eventually create a product that you can now start launching to investors to interest them to now start discussing investments and finance. So those are some of the hints that I can share with you on how we need to build the readiness to be aligned. It starts with knowledge, which you are now getting, and thanks to Gro Foundation, and then we move forward. So those are the points I'm trying to make in terms of my opening context, that we have got a development financing paradox in Africa, in Uganda, because we have abundance, but we, in terms of natural capital and in terms of we who are available to do the work, but we are simply not aligned, we are not ready, we lack skills and we lack knowledge. Where do we get knowledge? In such platforms? Where do we get the skills? By accessing the training opportunities that we can access. Traditional aid is going down, but like I've shared, we have opportunities in bringing our spaces and then building opportunities where we can now start discussing finance with investors. So now, climate finance is not just about climate. Climate finance is about catalyzing green jobs, interesting ourselves in clean infrastructure, or maybe pursuing to have or develop green infrastructure and inclusive growth. Everyone, nobody should be left behind. All these things, if you see green jobs, what are green jobs? Clean infrastructure, what is a clean infrastructure? What is inclusive growth? All these are the terms that we need to understand. So I may give you two key definitions that will make us understand what green jobs are and what clean infrastructures are before we even proceed forward. In Uganda right now, we have got what we call climate commitments or climate goals that government has made to the Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement is that international convention that government and other UN countries signed to be able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from across the emitting sectors. Those are commitments all governments that subscribe to the United Nations conventions have signed to, that we are ready to reduce greenhouse emissions. Why? Because they are the ones which lead to global warming, and when we have global warming, we have climate change. And when we have climate change, we are affected because it comes with effects. So I want to talk about two key terms. I want to talk about mitigation and adaptation. Why am I discussing this? Because it's part of our building the readiness for us to access and unlock money. And that is my topic. So mitigation means that we are able to undertake certain actions that will result into reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We have more than carbon dioxide gases that, because carbon dioxide is what we know, that lead to global warming. But all the other gases, we want to measure them in carbon dioxide equivalent for us to be able to calculate very well how much we are causing in terms of pollution to the environment. So when you hear carbon dioxide equivalent, it means that all other gases which cause pollution to the environment have been equated to the tons of carbon dioxide. And so mitigation is about that. All actions that we undertake that will result into reducing greenhouse gas emissions that cause global warming. Number two, we have got adaptation. Adaptation actions means that climate change as a result of global warming has already happened. So the adaptation means how do we cope with the effects of climate change on a sustainable basis? How do we cope? So what I want to highlight is that adaptation involves coping and building resilience. Resilience means that you are able to withstand the effects of climate change, you are able to cope and continue with life. But those coping mechanisms, those adaptation mechanisms and actions are not cheap. We need to look for opportunities. Right now we have grant opportunities. I heard you talking about can we access grants. We have to start looking at opportunities that are there where we can get grants. As long as we are involved and aligned in adaptation actions which can interest investors, we should be able to get some grant funding, we should be able to get some conceptual funding, because like I said, opportunities are there. As long as we now integrate. Hello.
Yes, you're back on.
Have I lost you again?
And now you're back on, yes.
Yeah, very good. So what I was trying to say is that we need to start integrating climate and environmental risks and opportunities in whatever we are doing, because again, that is part of building our readiness to access financing. Let me give you a statistic that is going to interest you so much. Africa needs an estimated $2.8 trillion by 2030 to implement its climate commitments. $2.8 trillion to implement our climate commitments. What does that mean? I mentioned that Uganda has signed its commitments to Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But all countries in Africa have those commitments made to Paris Agreement. Ours was signed in 2015, but all other African countries have signed. Now, while they commit to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, there are certain adaptation or mitigation actions they have to undertake. Are we together? So those adaptation and mitigation actions, like I've said, involve money. So those commitments have been costed. All African countries have costed all those commitments. And the costings, the accumulated costings for all African countries aggregate to $2.8 trillion by 2030. Now, in Uganda alone, our commitment to Paris Agreement to undertake adaptation and mitigation actions, again to reduce the effects of climate change and help us cope to the effects that are already happening, we costed it at $28.1 billion. You can't believe $28.1 billion. Now, while we have those huge astronomical significant figures that we need to undertake actions to cope and reduce the effects of climate change, the access to financing is still significantly low by African countries, which is the topic we are having today. Let me go back to it. And the topic is saying, how do we unlock alternative financing? How do we raise the necessary finance that we need? This is the topic that we have. We have ambitions, and we have opportunities available, but now our access is still a challenge. And I want to just go now slowly by giving you some of the strategies that we can use to be able to access this financing. Number one, I talked of greening our financial systems, greening our spaces, to be able to align ourselves and build the readiness that we need to access capital. Now I want to go into how do we do that. In Uganda, the commitments to Paris Agreement that I talked about are broken into the adaptation and mitigation, like I've already defined for you. The adaptation sectors are 13, and I'm sure you who are entrepreneurs and researchers in this room and innovators, you will fall in one of the sectors that I'm going to mention. For adaptation, we have 13, and one of them is environment and ecosystems. So who is not in environment and who is not in ecosystems? Number 2 is agriculture. And agriculture, I want to broaden it now to the new government focus and strategy of agro-industrialization. If you can build a space where you can start adding value to the agricultural products, you are very much aligned to government's focus in the next 1 year or 5 years. Agro-industrialization. The next one is water and sanitation. If you can have water and sanitation project, you will be so aligned. Then we have transport, we have tourism. Right now, tourism is one of the prioritized sectors, and we can talk a lot of innovations under tourism sector, even integrating technology in tourism, ecotourism. Now we are talking about ecotourism, etc. We have creative arts in tourism and etc. Then we have mining and mineral development, is also a prioritized sector. Meanwhile, we have these women who are artisanal women. They are mining, they are doing rubble and all these things. That is also mining. Then we have energy, is a sector that we are also interested in. We have health, we have education, etc. Those are sectors of interest under adaptation. When you go to mitigation, we have got what we call a follow. A follow is agriculture land and other agriculture, forestry and other land uses. Industrial processes and product use as another sector. We have waste management and energy. I have somebody talking of waste management on the lake. That is an area where we can also be aligned and where we are so much interested. So across those sectors, how do we green them then? Greening the sector means that while you are trying to develop a business around those sectors that I have mentioned, then the actions you take should not be such that they will contribute to greenhouse gases, which will pollute the environment. They should not be such that they are going to deforest.
The power of memories has never been so meaningful than when time passes by. It's only in photography and videography that we can be able to tell what exactly happened in our lives. Do not lose the beautiful events of your life, from graduation to birthday parties, introduction ceremonies, parties that matter, wedding. All this and much more can be brought down into memories of photography and videography. At KEB International Group, we understand what it means to keep these memories. We are inviting you today to contact us for the best rates in town for your photography and videography events. +256 702 13 75 66 of +256 773 1375 66. We will cover and reach you at any time, any part of the world, no matter the time. We are here to keep your memories alive. Keep videography and photography your number one events memories.
And damage the ecosystems. That is how we can start talking of green. We start talking of efficiencies, building efficiencies, either in energy or whatever it is, and reducing waste. All those are actions that we undertake that contribute towards greening our spaces. And any business that you build around there, you should be able to be aligned with now accessing climate finance. So let me proceed quickly. We need to promote environmental, social, and governance standards. Gro Foundation knows this very well. But we also need to see what regulations are around what we are doing. We have regulations all over all these sectors. But for climate finance and climate change, we have the Climate Change Policy of 2015. We have the Climate Change Act of 2021. And for us in the climate finance space, we have now the National Climate Financing Strategy. All these strategies are available for us to check and see how aligned we need to get. Then we have got the RED Plus strategy. It is something that you also need to read about. RED Plus is REDD plus. REDD plus. It just means R is for reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation. RED Plus strategy. How do we reduce emissions that are coming from deforestation, that are coming from forest degradation? So those are the strategies that we need to be covered and with, because there are opportunities in carbon market that I'm going to highlight to you quickly, which the Gro Foundation knows very well. There are opportunities in around greening the forestry ecosystem, because you can make briquettes. People are making briquettes. People are making pellets. People are making. They are doing apiary in forestry. There are people are doing agroforestry, which is part of the greening the forestry sector. People are building businesses around protected areas to provide alternative livelihoods for communities around forestry who have been depending on the forestry for their livelihood. It could be medicinal. Our colleague in COVID gave us medicines. He has now been integrated to now build his businesses around that space. So you can see examples of what we can give now, not only in Uganda, is that Uganda has got the strategies they are developing, but in Nigeria, we are learning a lot from Nigeria. Nigeria is building its space and people accessing a lot of money. Kenya has built its space. Rwanda, the same thing. They are doing a lot of initiatives, especially for their youth. But the emphasis is on education, training, and knowledge and skills to build readiness for accessing this money. Why? Because these monies are highly competitive. You can imagine in Uganda now, as a Ministry of Finance, we are working with 4 key international financing mechanisms, which I want you to know and go and start reading about. We are working with the Green Climate Fund, commonly known as GCF. After this presentation, if you go to the website and just say GCF, you will see GCF, Green Climate Fund. The other international funding mechanisms we are working with is called Global Environmental Facility, GEF. You will see it on everyone is free to access these mechanisms. They are not for Ministry of Finance, they are international climate financing mechanisms. And I will tell you how they work very quickly. We are working with the Adaptation Fund. Adaptation Fund, by the way, is part of the Global Environmental Facility, which started in 1992 after the United Nations Convention Framework on Climate Change. That is 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. This thing has been there. People have been accessing the money. So you do not have to struggle. You just need to know who has accessed, how did they access, what how did they access the money, and then you align yourself. And then we have now other fundings that are coming in for least developed countries, of which Uganda is among. But my main point is these financing mechanisms are for all of us in Africa to access, you can imagine. So meaning that wherever you have, by the principles of economics, if you have resources that are limited, and the demand is high, what happens to the price? The price is so high. Now for us, the resources are there. They are not priced because most of them are for come in the form of grants. But our price comes in the form of the investment we need to put in terms of building readiness again, but also in developing proposals that are highly competitive. And that is where the Ministry of Finance through the Climate Finance Unit will come in to help you prepare proposals that can be acceptable, that are palatable by the investors for funding. And that is the challenge we have. Most people do not want to invest in the processes. You have to invest in the process. No one is going to tell you today that you are going to sit down in your room, write some proposal overnight, and tomorrow you bring it finance for financing and will be accepted. That is what I want to just be candid with you, and I tell you that you have to invest in the processes. It is part of building the readiness. Now, do we have innovative and green financing instruments for raising the money? The answer is yes. I don't know whether you have, okay, before I even go to innovative, I talked of, do we know the conventional before we talk of alternative? The conventional financing mechanisms we have is the normal things. When you go to commercial banks now, they tell you about loans, they tell you about overdrafts. If you go to development financial institutions like Microfinance Support Center and the Uganda Development Bank, they have special programs where you can access small capital. Catalytic capital. Catalytic means capital that you can access that can help you to make a step from point A to point B, where you are now ready to discuss for a loan. But a catalytic grant comes to you that you are now not ready, but if we give you this grant, we see potential to reach a certain point where you can discuss a loan by yourself. That's what we mean by catalytic. Yeah? They are kickstarting you and kickstarting your business to now take a step to venture into the real financing. That is catalytic. If you go to development financial institutions like Abbey Trust, I think you have heard of ABI, you have heard of Merciful, you have heard of, you said now has closed, but it was doing grants. And the other, you have heard of SNV. SNV is a Netherlands thing. So these are organizations that we have that give you some of the grants to kickstart the businesses so that you can move forward. Those are the conventional financing means that I know. Conventional financing is usually from public, that instead of giving you, like Microfinance Support Center, instead of accessing money at the 17% per annum, you can access it at 12%, 9% per annum. That's what we mean by public concessional financing. It is you are accessing financing below the market rate. That is what we mean by concession. So those are the common instruments that we know that are available. But when I take you now to innovative financing mechanisms where you can now access money, then we start talking of enhancements into the financing. You know what we mean by enhancements? Enhancements means you are going to access a loan, but this loan is going to come with an insurance package because they know you are not very ready, but you have potential. I can give a guarantee, and I say company X has potential, but if the company X access insurance product, which is also affordable, then I could risk my guarantee fund to company X to reduce to downgrade the risk that you who is going to invest are seeing now. That is what we mean by enhancements into the financing, and that is what we start when we start talking of alternative mechanisms for unlocking capital. And other people now will move to call it a blended financing mechanism, that we are giving you a grant, and then towards that grant we are going to add a loan, which is concessional. I've already explained the concessional, but we are going to enhance it all by the insurance and guarantees. So that is what we mean by now going innovative financing. Yeah? That you are now coming up with a mix, a cocktail of financing options which one can access to help them be able to finance their enterprise. But these days we have got other instruments that we are now going to venture into. You might have heard of bonds, conventional bonds. Conventional bonds, I will explain briefly how they work. These are just debt-raising instruments. If government wants to raise money to finance its development programs, it will issue a paper. You know, bonds are papers. I used to think when I was young that bonds was some kind of wood that you get a bond and you carry it home and keep it. But bond is just a paper.
ECOSOC Youth Forum, and it was organized by Government of Uganda in partnership with Gro Foundation and Heal the Planet, UNDP, the UN family in Uganda. And you have realized that today's dialogue, we have been talking about unlocking alternative financing and capital raising mechanisms for sustainable development in Africa. What wouldn't be the right time to discuss about money or capital raising? As we all know that 78% of the businesses, or even close to 80% of the businesses, are literally accommodated or accommodating young people. Even if you look at our human capital, or even if you look at our labor force, we are the biggest population that are in this labor force. And we are the generation that has stolen, robbed in this way. I'm sure most of you in this room, or even online, have really written, I don't know how many proposals. And you end up somewhere, they don't respond to you, but you are very sure that you're seeing this program move. Now, we are the blueprint of these programs. I believe that if we strive towards realization of these goals, of course, we face significant financial gaps, as people have been talking about. The traditional development financing will not get us where we need to be. We all know that we need incubation. The issue of incubation is very key. Project design and development. Who is de-risking our projects? Who is safeguarding our projects? As we're talking about standardization, who is protecting our ideas that we are talking about? I'm very sure 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, some person asked about what platform, what fora can we use to make sure that as young people, I think 5 years ago, there was a creation of the Youth Coalition for SDGs, I think in 2015. That's 10 years ago, right? Some of us have been in this room. You are seeing the products of the Youth Coalition for SDGs. You have the president here today with us. We have Kivumbi Ernest, one of also the former executives. I'm the former president of the Youth Coalition for SDGs. So we have had Edwin being one of the, I think was our inaugural president. Then I came in, then now we have Amina. This, which already shows you a transition of young people. We met the president, I think, about 3-4 years ago. And he told us that this is the address of the money. The address of the money, there are 4 addresses of money. Commercial agriculture, industrialization and manufacturing, ICT innovation, and services. But how do we reach young people? Each year we are supposed to have looked at mobilizing over 100,000 young people in those specific sectors. That means that by the end of 2030, we would have mobilized 1 million per each sector. Are we where we are today? I am not sure. But at least I'm very sure that this is a platform that you can use as a young person, and we are grateful to government. Government has given us an opportunity and space. We work under the office of the Prime Minister and the UN Resident Coordinator's office. So get chance, the president is here, the regional coordinators, talk to them, see how you can be oriented in this space. It's a very good space, and even participating in these forums, which will provide opportunities. When we were applying for this side event, we did not know that we were going to be selected. But this is an opportunity for us as Uganda, as the youth, making sure that we can talk at the level of ECOSOC. Those who know the UN system, you know what ECOSOC is. So it means that now we can table these issues at the high-level political forum in July. And we shall be there at the Ugandan embassy. Let us make sure that we can create these forums and we deliberate. I'm happy that we have government participating. You have seen Ministry of Finance. So we have identified key projects that can unlock more money in the special interest groups. What are we looking at? How can government fund the unfundable?
because that's the most important thing right now. Raising capital for who and for what and for where? Who receives? We have seen these interventions coming. Some of us look at them as if they are political, interventions, because they come at the time when they need our vote. Why do they come at the time when they need our vote? But after 3 years of the vote and 2 years into we don't see these interventions. So it is time as young people to rise up in a good way. It is very hard to fight a person who is hungry. A hungry man is an angry man. How many will you beat and how many will you kill? If we woke up this morning and I'm telling you, some people are looking for chikomando chapat of 500 shillings. Now, this is where we need to see that, at least as the way forward, how do we bring in a new partnership? We have seen joint ventures. We have seen PPPs. But for us as Gro Foundation, we're trying to bring in PPCP. Now, this is the private public community partnership. Now, if you don't involve the community, my colleague here, Her Excellency, talked about communities. We are here in boardrooms discussing models for communities. But who is representing the community? Go find the community. That's why for us, we work with grassroots levels. We are working with Interreligious Council of Uganda. We are working with cultural institutions to make sure that our message literally goes to the community. So we are happy to work with community-based organizations, mostly. I know sometimes it's very easy to register a community-based organization, the CBO. You talk to the community development officer at the district or at sub-county level, and you have your registration done. So that you don't go into this issue of taxes and what and URA. We need incubation. The issue of incubation is key. And of course, we're talking about the other avenues, food security. I'm happy to announce that at least the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Water and Environment have given us a space and have been able to give no objection on our project that we're trying to do with the elderly. Now we have a project with the older persons. We realized that 2 years ago, we launched a project with the young people, but young people have no land. Even if you wanted to do agriculture, who of you has a land title here? You are lucky, you have land. But I'm sure when you are talking about, when you said you are just from campus, from what, you are going to the bank to ask for a loan, they're asking you for a land title. You're 28 years of age, 30. Where did you get that land title from? I'm giving an example. 28, because those are the youngest people, 28 to 30. Those are the ones who are now in business. Do they have land titles that you're asking for? We are operating on the Financial Institutions Act, which is literally 10, 15 years ago. Because right now, the financial institutions will not give you money if you have no what? No collateral. But how about we talk about that other avenue? We create a product for ourselves that the export market and the local market will buy. In this case, for us, we're talking about carbon certificates. We create carbon certificates. And this is a product that can be bought. We are facilitating, or we are working with government to create green bonds initiatives. You have realized how the Ministry of Finance is telling you. Who is receiving this money? So, for me, in my conclusion, I really want to look at the practicability of what we're talking about. How do we then talk about this $28 billion? We left COP. They said over $300 million has been earmarked annually for the low developing countries. But who is receiving this money? Who is even paying this money? Tivumbi was right to ask. For us, our issue is we want money. So, but money should be realized and we create jobs. We work in the Fantastic Four, as I conclude. Food security, water security, education and skilling, and green jobs. Those are the four metrics, the Fantastic Four, we are creating to have a platform for government to track some of these things. So we are happy as Gro Foundation, and of course definitely as organizing partners, that you have officially joined us. We want to tap into that 1 trillion that government says is in UNDP for green financing. We really, really want to tap into that money. That 1 trillion government is putting in PDM. Maybe OPM will help us. We want a portion, even if you gave us 10%. Even if you gave us 10% of 1 trillion, colleagues, that's 100 what? Billion. We need to start discussing these issues at that level. Those colleagues of us who have gone in parliament, we need to have a discussion with these parliamentarians. We are discussing Nyash in parliament. I don't know if it is an issue. But for me, I think cheap capital is an issue. Access to debt is an issue. The young businesses must access cheap money. You cannot get money at 15% per annum when our own economy is growing at 6% per annum. It means that if you get that debt immediately like this, you have 2 years. You are sure that those 2 years you will not pay because the economy is growing at 6%, but the debt is at 15% per annum. So how are you going to pay? It means your grandchildren will pay for this. So in my conclusive remarks, I'm really happy